My dears, today I'm going to tell you the story of a very special woman, sweet Amelia. Oh, if you had known that young lady like I did. So strong, so determined. Amelia was one of those mothers who would do anything for her child. And when I say anything, I mean it. Just imagine agreeing to marry a stranger, a cold, powerful, millionaire man, just to save the life of her little boy, little Michael, who was battling leukemia. But my loves, fate had very different plans for her. Come with me and discover everything that happened in this heartfelt story, and don't forget to subscribe and leave a like on our channel. Now it's your turn, my dear Amelia.
Thank you, Nana Rose. You are, as always, unfailingly gracious. My life, until that point, had been a grueling regimen of watery coffee, double shifts, and the pervasive reek of low-grade bleach. Chicago, with its towering skyscrapers and the promise of boundless opportunities, appeared a distant, almost cruel mirage to those relegated to the fringes, like myself. My apartment, a cramped cubicle in Cicero, served as the daily theater of my struggle. The flaking walls seemed to murmur my shortcomings, while the refrigerator, invariably near empty, was a persistent reminder of my inadequacy in providing sufficiently. Yet, amidst this chaos, there was Michael. My Michael. His blue eyes, vibrant and brimming with life, were my beacon, my very reason for breathing. At 6 years old, he was an embodiment of boundless energy, curiosity, and unconditional love. His laughter, a crystalline bell, resonated throughout our home, filling the void with an almost palpable joy. It was for him that I rose each morning, even when weariness crushed me and hope seemed to flicker on the verge of extinction. Then came the diagnosis, leukemia. The word, cold and implacable, invaded our lives like a devastating tempest. Abruptly, the world transmuted into a somber landscape, suffused with unremitting dread. Hospitals, with their frigid corridors and acrid reek of disinfectant, metamorphosed into our new domicile. The needles, the incessant tests, the chemotherapy, each day presented a brutal struggle against an unseen adversary. I worked as a waitress at Le Fleur, a chic French restaurant downtown. It was a world away from my reality, a realm of crystal stemware, linen napkins, and affluent clientele. But the pay was good and the tips generous. Every penny went straight to Michael's treatment. I bent over backwards to cater to the patrons with a smile, even as exhaustion gnawed at me internally. That night, everything unraveled. Michael suffered a sudden acute episode, one of those that rendered us speechless with dread. The soaring fever, the gasping for breath, the vacant stare. I raced to the hospital, leaving a furious client and an exasperated manager in my wake. The dismissal followed the next day, a cruel and unforeseen blow. Bereft of my employment, my salary, my tips, how was I to afford Michael's treatment? Despair engulfed me like an overwhelming tide. It was at that precise moment that Andrew Bennett surfaced. His name, a byword within Chicago's corridors of power, belonged to a real estate magnate, a figure both dispassionate and aloof, utterly implacable. Shrouded in an almost impenetrable veil of mystery, his fortune appeared to know no bounds. He was present at Le Fleur that evening, an acute observer of my unfolding desperation. Andrew found me at the hospital. His presence, towering and formidable, stood in stark contrast to the fragility of the surroundings. He presented me with a proposition, a pact, an arrangement that seemed to emerge from a grim, twisted fairy tale. He would cover Michael's treatment, every last penny, without a moment's hesitation. In return, I would marry him. A marriage of convenience, devoid of love, bereft of passion. Merely a contract to satisfy his family's expectations and safeguard his interests. Initially, the idea struck me as preposterous, utterly outrageous. To sell my freedom, my very life in exchange for money? Yet, upon gazing at Michael's pallid face, struggling for breath amidst a tangle of tubes and wires, my hesitation utterly dissipated. I would do anything for him. Absolutely anything. I accepted the proposition. I stipulated but one condition: Michael would always hold precedence. Andrew assented. The agreement was duly executed. My life was forever altered. I left the cubicle in Cicero behind and moved into Andrew's mansion, a palatial residence of marble and glass in an affluent neighborhood. It was a world of butlers, opulent automobiles, and formal dinners. A place where I constantly felt like an interloper, an imposter. But amidst all that opulence, Michael found a home. Andrew, the cold and distant man, revealed an unexpected side. He was captivated by Michael, by his purity, by his joy. The two developed a genuine connection, a bond that transcended the contract. And gradually, I too began to see beyond Andrew's facade. I uncovered a solitary man, haunted by the specters of his past and constrained by his family's expectations. A man capable of love, of profound emotion, and of genuine compassion. What began as a cold, calculating arrangement started to transform into something more. Something I hadn't anticipated. Something that unnerved me. Something that instilled hope in me. But fate, inexorable, had other plans. Yet, the seeming perfection of that new life proved to be a fragile illusion, suspended by a mere thread of hope and an ocean of secrets. Andrew's father, a man of austere countenance and unbridled ambitions, never countenanced our marriage. In his eyes, I was merely an interloper, a threat to his family's legacy and the control of his enterprises. He perceived me as an opportunist, someone who had exploited his son's vulnerability to elevate her social standing. His distrust was palpable, a subtle venom that permeated every conversation, every glance. He scrutinized me with a disquieting intensity, probing my every action, every word, for any semblance of deceit. The pressure was relentless, suffocating. I felt like a bird ensnared in a gilded cage, admired for its beauty yet bereft of its liberty. Moreover, my own insecurity gnawed at me from within. I was an unpretentious woman, accustomed to relentless struggle, arduous toil, and a life devoid of opulence. That high society milieu, with its opulent galas, its refined banquets, and its intricate social codes, was utterly alien to my reality. I endeavored to adapt, to master its conventions, to comport myself as a lady, yet I constantly felt a step behind, sensing I would never truly belong among those who surrounded me. Furthermore, the specter of the contract loomed ominously over us like a dark cloud. Andrew and I were growing progressively closer, cultivating a genuine bond, an affection that transcended the initial arrangement. Yet the persistent awareness that our relationship had originated as a mere commercial transaction prevented me from fully surrendering myself. I harbored a deep-seated fear of falling in love, of being utterly disillusioned, and ultimately of being wounded. Conversely, Michael flourished. The mansion transformed into his domain, a place where he could frolic, explore, and revel in enjoyment. Andrew emerged as his hero, a comrade in adventure, a trusted confidant. With each passing day, Michael's health showed marked improvement, the leukemia receded, and hope was reignited in our hearts. Nonetheless, happiness was tenuous, ephemeral. Andrew's father, bent on destroying our marriage, began to delve into my past, to scour my life for secrets. He uncovered my pecuniary struggles, my meagerly remunerated positions, my life of privation. He leveraged these revelations to malign me, to abase me, to make me feel unworthy of Andrew's love. Consequently, the tension between Andrew and his father intensified. They were locked in acrimonious arguments, power struggles, and manipulative ploys. Andrew defended our marriage tooth and nail, but I felt I was alienating him from his family, placing him in an untenable position. In light of this, I decided to withdraw. It was the only way to protect Andrew, to prevent him from losing everything on my account. I took Michael and returned to the cramped apartment in Cicero, to the simple, arduous life I knew so well. I left behind the mansion, the opulence, Andrew's love. However, the joy proved fleeting. Michael suffered a relapse. The leukemia, which had been dormant for a brief interlude, resurfaced with unbridled ferocity. Despair engulfed me anew. Penniless, uninsured, and without Andrew, I was utterly at a loss. And so, Andrew appeared at the hospital. His face, once serene and impassive, was etched with worry and suffering. He embraced me tightly, as if he were afraid of losing me. And there, amidst tears and sobs, he confessed. He could no longer pretend. He could no longer live without me. And above all, without Michael. The contract, the sham marriage, the family's expectations. None of that mattered anymore. He loved me. He loved Michael. And he was willing to fight for us. Following that declaration, the hospital was transformed into a crucible of intense emotions. The walls, previously cold and impersonal, seemed to radiate a new energy, a vital force pulsating through every corner. The fragility of the moment, the uncertainty of the future, the pain of illness, all intensified, but also became imbued with a renewed hope. Andrew, in confessing his love, had shattered the bonds of the past, the expectations of his family, and the strictures of society. He had liberated himself from the gilded cage he inhabited, thereby unlocking a future that, though uncertain, was undeniably authentic. Such courage, such audacity proved deeply inspiring to me. They demonstrated to me that genuine love possesses the power to surmount any obstacle, to defy any convention. Yet the battle was far from won. Andrew's father, enraged by his son's defiance, escalated his offensive. He initiated legal proceedings to nullify the marriage, contending that I had manipulated him, that I had exploited his emotional vulnerability to abscond with his fortune. The accusations were baseless and calumnious, yet the reach of his influence was formidable. Andrew, cognizant of his father's machinations, decided to strike back. Instead of succumbing to family pressure, he renounced his inheritance, abdicating all the fortune due to him. The decision, drastic and unprecedented, stunned everyone. In society's eyes, he had committed an act of madness, of utter folly. But to us, it was a demonstration of unconditional love, a sacrifice that outweighed any material wealth. The judicial process protracted, sapping our energies and holding us in perpetual vigilance. Each passing day brought fresh allegations, the summoning of new witnesses, and the unfolding of unexpected developments. The media, ravenous for sensationalism, scrutinized every facet of our lives, transforming our personal ordeal into a veritable public spectacle. Meanwhile, Michael's health was deteriorating. The chemotherapy, once efficacious, was no longer yielding the desired results. The leukemia was proving stubbornly resistant and unrelenting. The physicians, deeply concerned, apprised us of the gravity of the situation. It was imperative that we locate a compatible bone marrow donor without delay. Andrew was unflaggingly dedicated to the pursuit of a donor. He leveraged his network, spearheaded awareness campaigns, and funded scientific research. His determination was both profoundly inspiring and utterly infectious. He steadfastly refused to be disheartened, even when confronted with daunting obstacles. Indeed, Michael's battle for survival forged an even deeper bond between us. Andrew and I became a single, indivisible entity, an unyielding force. We unearthed a profound rapport, an unparalleled intimacy, a connection that transcended mere romantic love. We were parents, confidants, lovers, partners in life's odyssey. Together, we weathered the tempests, reveled in minor triumphs, and mutually fortified one another. Concurrently, the judicial pressure escalated. Andrew's father, bent on our destruction, deployed every resource at his command. He retained top-tier counsel, bribed witnesses, and disseminated fabricated stories in the press. The predicament was dire. Furthermore, my faith began to waver. At certain junctures, I found myself utterly overwhelmed, profoundly enervated, and utterly incapable of enduring such immense suffering. I questioned the very purpose of it all, constantly pondering whether it was truly worthwhile to contend for such an indeterminate future. However, gazing upon Michael's face, into his blue eyes brimming with hope, faith surged anew within me. He was my strength, my inspiration, my very reason to persevere. I could not give up on him. I could not forsake him. I had to fight to the very end. Consequently, Andrew and I resolved to confront his father in court. We were determined to unveil the truth, expose his falsehoods, and champion our love. We knew it would be an arduous battle, yet we were prepared. And united, we would face whatever might ensue. At that pivotal juncture, the courtroom became the epicenter of a dispute that transcended the confines of a mere family matter. The walls, emblazoned with symbols of justice, seemed to bear witness not merely to a legal confrontation, but to a profound clash between antagonistic values. On one side stood the entrenched tradition, immense wealth, and formidable influence of a powerful family. On the other, the unwavering devotion, sheer resilience, and ardent hope of a mother prepared to go to any lengths to save her son. The legal battle was not merely about the validity of our marriage or the dispute over Andrew's inheritance. It was, above all, a profound struggle for dignity, for the inherent right to build a family founded on love and truth, irrespective of societal conventions or external expectations. It stood as a potent manifesto against the prejudice, discrimination, and pervasive hypocrisy that permeated Chicago's high society. Meanwhile, Michael's condition deteriorated with each passing day. The search for a compatible bone marrow donor proved fruitless, and the physicians constantly impressed upon us the dire urgency of the situation. Time was our adversary, and every lost minute jeopardized my son's very life. In the interim, a beacon of hope materialized from the gloom. A philanthropic organization, profoundly moved by our plight, stepped forward to underwrite an experimental treatment, a groundbreaking therapy that might prove to be Michael's ultimate recourse. The proposition, though inherently perilous, represented the sole viable alternative to merely awaiting a donor. However, the treatment's acceptance was contingent upon judicial authorization. Andrew's father, determined to impede our progress, vehemently opposed the experimental therapy, asserting it was a profligate expenditure of resources and would imperil Michael's life. The dispute escalated, and time was rapidly running out. In the face of this impasse, Andrew made an unforeseen move. During a deeply moving declaration, he formally relinquished all his claims to the family patrimony, asserting that Michael's life held far greater worth than any material fortune. This symbolically charged decision ultimately paved the way for the experimental treatment's approval. Nonetheless, the courtroom battle was far from over. Andrew's intransigent father persisted in assailing us, utilizing every conceivable means to destabilize us. The pressure was unremitting, and the tension mounted daily. Conversely, our bond solidified. Andrew and I became a bulwark, shielding Michael from his grandfather's persistent machinations. Together, we navigated the adversities, shared our profound anguish, and celebrated our minor triumphs. Love, hope, and faith served as our arsenal, and we were prepared to wield them until the very end. Moreover, the Chicago community mobilized on our behalf. Friends, neighbors, and even complete strangers all coalesced to provide us with support, offering financial, emotional, and spiritual succor. The collective solidarity, profound compassion, and immense generosity of these individuals provided us with the fortitude to persevere. Now, picture the immense power emanating from that groundswell of support. It was as though the entire city were championing our cause, actively channeling positive energies towards Michael. That steadfast, unconditional backing unequivocally demonstrated that we were not isolated, and indeed, that we possessed an undeniable right to strive for a more propitious future. The experimental therapy commenced. Michael, courageous and resilient, confronted the treatment with valor and unwavering resolve. The side effects were grueling, yet he remained undeterred. His fortitude served as an inspiration to us all. Meanwhile, the legal proceedings were drawing to a close. Andrew's father's assertions were proving increasingly tenuous, and the truth was beginning to come to light. The witnesses, hitherto intimidated, felt emboldened to testify on our behalf. The day of final reckoning had arrived. The courtroom was filled to capacity, and the atmosphere was thick with palpable anticipation. Andrew and I sat side by side, our hands clasped, prepared to confront whatever lay ahead. We were acutely aware that Michael's future, and indeed that of our family, hinged on that verdict. In that solemn moment, when the courtroom silence seemed almost tangible, the judge began to pronounce the judgment. Every word, uttered with crystalline clarity and unwavering firmness, reverberated throughout the hushed chamber, laden with gravitas and profound meaning. The tension was so pervasive that the collective bated breath of all present was almost palpable. Andrew clasped my hand tightly, imparting both courage and a deep sense of reassurance. Conversely, Michael's health, severely debilitated by the experimental therapy, necessitated unceasing vigilance. With each passing day, the prospect of a complete recovery waned, gradually yielding to an overwhelming sense of anguish and powerlessness. Nevertheless, I steadfastly refused to relinquish hope. I held firm in the conviction that a miracle could transpire, that the potency of our love possessed the power to vanquish the malady. The judge's ruling brought an unexpected sense of relief. After meticulously examining the evidence and hearing the testimonies, she ruled in our favor. She upheld the validity of our marriage, dismissed Andrew's father's allegations, and authorized the continuation of Michael's experimental treatment. This hard-won and eminently deserved triumph was met with tears of joy and heartfelt applause. Nevertheless, the legal battle had left profound marks on all of us. Andrew, by relinquishing his inheritance, had irrevocably broken with his family, forsaking a future of comfort and security. I, in confronting prejudice and discrimination, had become a stronger and more resolute woman. And Michael, in his battle against leukemia, had taught us the true meaning of life. Now imagine the magnitude of this transformation. Andrew, once an aloof magnate, had become a humble and generous man, willing to sacrifice everything for love. I, formerly a resilient single mother, had become a champion of justice and equality. And Michael, once a vulnerable child, had become a symbol of hope and resilience. Moreover, the victory in court did not spell the cessation of our problems. Michael's experimental treatment remained fraught with risk and uncertainty. Each day we were confronted with novel challenges and escalating difficulties. Yet collectively we surmounted every impediment, thereby further solidifying the bonds that united us. Consequently, my relationship with Andrew deepened. We discovered an intimacy, a profound connection, and a passion hitherto unimagined. Our love, which had commenced as a mere contract, evolved into a pure and genuine sentiment, capable of withstanding all tribulations. Conversely, Andrew's father, vanquished and consumed by bitterness, isolated himself from the world, devoured by hatred and resentment. He proved unable to accept our happiness, nor could he pardon his son's defiance. His existence, formerly defined by power and ambition, spiraled into a hollow futility. My bond with Andrew's family, his father notwithstanding, deepened significantly. Andrew's mother and siblings, profoundly touched by our narrative, extended their steadfast support and genuine warmth. They acknowledged my integrity, my unwavering commitment, and my profound love for Andrew and Michael. Thus, we forged a new family, founded on respect, trust, and understanding. A family that transcended blood ties, coalesced around shared values, and offered steadfast support during arduous periods. A family that served as an exemplar of love and hope for all acquainted with it. Michael felt cherished, safeguarded, and secure. Andrew's presence, encompassing both the roles of father and friend, imbued him with profound joy and unwavering confidence. He was fully cognizant that he could rely on our unwavering, unconditional support, certain that we would never forsake him. Family is our ultimate haven, our steadfast refuge in times of adversity. It is within the family that we discover the love, support, and understanding essential for navigating life's myriad challenges. It is also within the family that we internalize the values that guide us and sculpt us into improved individuals. The ostensible tranquility following the judicial tempest proved to be merely a prelude to even more profound trials. While Michael's leukemia had entered remission, the adverse effects of the experimental treatment left him severely debilitated, highly susceptible to infections, and in a fragile state necessitating unremitting care. The elation of triumph was therefore intertwined with the constant apprehension of an unpredictable future. Michael's frailty paradoxically fortified the bonds among us. Andrew, previously a man singularly focused on material acquisition, discovered a renewed sense of purpose in his unwavering devotion to his son. The countless sleepless nights, the meticulous attention to his nourishment, the relentless pursuit of complementary therapies, every single gesture, every profound sacrifice, served as profound manifestations of an unconditional love that utterly transformed his intrinsic being. Meanwhile, my personal journey of transformation continued. The ordeal of fighting for my son's life awakened within me a profound calling to assist other families confronting analogous challenges. I commenced volunteering at a children's hospital, providing emotional solace and pragmatic guidance to parents who felt adrift and despairing. This hospital experience unveiled for me the stark cruelty of social inequity. Many families, lacking financial resources or access to vital information, were deprived of the same treatment opportunities as Michael. The profound indignation spurred by this injustice compelled me to establish a foundation to raise funds and provide support to pediatric cancer patients and their families. Now imagine how this initiative profoundly transformed my life. Suddenly, my personal suffering took on a new meaning, a collective dimension. Through aiding others, I felt more empowered, more fulfilled, and more deeply connected to the world. The pain of loss was transmuted into the strength to champion a more just and egalitarian future. It bears mentioning that this new chapter of my life demanded considerable adaptive effort. Reconciling my commitments at the foundation with the demands of Michael's care and nurturing my relationship with Andrew proved to be a formidable challenge. On numerous occasions, I found myself profoundly fatigued, overburdened, and unable to contend with the full scope of my responsibilities. Conversely, Andrew's support proved instrumental in surmounting these challenges. He not only spurred me on, but also actively engaged in the Foundation's endeavors, contributing his time, resources, and expertise. Together, we forged an indomitable team, empowered to transform lives and inspire others. On the other hand, my relationship with Andrew's father remained strained and distant. While he never fully reconciled with us, he gradually began to evince signs of remorse. Small gestures such as sending gifts to Michael or settling medical expenses unveiled a more humane and compassionate side. I have learned that forgiveness is a lengthy and complex process, one that demands patience, understanding, and above all, the willingness to relinquish the past. Although the suffering he caused us is indelibly etched in my memory, I have chosen to embrace the possibility of eventual reconciliation. I came to realize that our mission extended far beyond merely nurturing our own family. It became our profound responsibility to share our narrative with the world, to inspire others to relentlessly pursue their dreams, and to unequivocally demonstrate that love, hope, and solidarity are the most formidable weapons at our disposal for confronting life's myriad adversities. Upon contemplating the intricate weaving of the invisible threads that constitute this tapestry of lived experiences, we discern that the veritable essence of the journey resides not in the terminal points, but rather in the profound metamorphosis that each successive stride instigates. This is analogous to observing the kaleidoscopic spectrum of colors, where each discrete fragment in isolation holds an inherent allure, yet it is solely through their synchronized interplay that they unveil the consummate magnificence of the unified whole. Reflecting on this trajectory thus far, we discern that resilience does not manifest as an impenetrable armor, but rather as the inherent pliability of bamboo, which yields to the force of the wind only to reassert itself with even greater vitality. True triumph, therefore, extends beyond the mere attainment of an objective. It lies in the capacity to transmute scars into guiding cartographies toward a more authentic future. As we draw closer to the epilogue of this narrative, it becomes unequivocally clear that happiness is not a static state to be attained, but rather a symphony of moments, where the melody of joy intertwines with the harmony of acceptance and the resilience of hope. It is akin to contemplating the moon's reflection upon the water, where beauty resides not in the image's flawless rendition, but in the subtle dance of the ripples. In light of these findings, the path unfolding before us reveals that true wealth lies not in the accumulation of material possessions, but in the cultivation of meaningful connections, the sharing of experiences, and the capacity to love and be loved unconditionally. It is akin to tending a garden, where each blossom, each fruit, embodies a tender gesture, an act of munificence, a nascent hope. As we prepare for the denouement of this narrative, we invite you to reflect upon the transformative power of empathy, the importance of cultivating compassion, and the urgency of forging a more just and compassionate world. May this story serve as an inspiration for each of us to discover our own path, treading it with courage, faith, and above all love. May we, together, weave a future where hope is the compass and kindness, the beacon that illuminates our journey. And thus, the symphony of our lives, once marked by dissonances and poignant silences, found its final cadence. Michael, robust and radiant, blossomed like a sunflower turning towards the light, leukemia having become a distant memory, a phantom dissipated by the sheer force of love and hope. Andrew, divested of his armor of aloofness and ambition, proved himself a genuine man, a devoted father, a loyal companion, discovering in the simplicity of familial bonds the true measure of wealth. And I, once a mother battling against the tide, emerged as a beacon, guiding other families through the tempests of illness and inequity, transforming anguish into fuel for compassion and action. In retrospect, I recognize that the journey was not devoid of scars. The imprints of pain, uncertainty, and fear remain indelibly etched upon our souls, serving as a poignant reminder of life's inherent vulnerability and the paramount importance of cherishing each fleeting moment. Yet, far from confining us to the past, these very scars have transformed into navigational charts, guiding us towards a future characterized by heightened awareness, profound compassion, and a deeper communion with the very essence of humanity. We have come to understand that love, in its most unadulterated and authentic manifestation, transcends the confines of wealth, social standing, and societal norms. It stands as a transformative power, potent enough to mend profound hurts, to reconcile estranged hearts, and to galvanize acts of valor and magnanimity. It is an invaluable endowment, which ought to be assiduously cultivated, fostered with tenderness, and disseminated widely. We have come to realize that hope is not a futile illusion, but rather an indomitable flame that blazes within our hearts, even amidst the most profound darkness. It imbues us with the resilience to persevere, to envision a brighter future, and to champion a more just and egalitarian world. It stands as a beacon guiding us through the tempest, reminding us that even after the longest night, the sun invariably reemerges to shine. Moreover, we apprehend that solidarity constitutes the very bedrock of a more humane and compassionate society. By extending a helping hand to those in distress, by offering solace and profound understanding, and by sharing our collective resources and innate talents, we forge a world where suffering is assuaged, hope is revitalized, and love blossoms unequivocally in every heart. Thus, our narrative becomes both an invitation to reflection and a compelling call to action. May it inspire each of you to cultivate empathy, practice compassion, and strive to build a world where justice, equality, and solidarity are the foundational pillars underpinning our existence. May we together weave a future where hope serves as our unwavering compass and love, our constant guide. The authentic endeavor commences now. May each of us, on our individual journey, discover the fortitude to transmute suffering into purposeful action, apprehension into intrepidity, and despondency into renewed hope. May we collectively endeavor to construct a world where the radiance of affection illuminates every heart and the symphony of empathy reverberates throughout every sphere. Thus may it be.